With the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
Last week, the season got underway with a blockbuster event at the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. We head to a very different challenge across the pond here at the Hockenheimring for round 2 of the Precision Racing League Formula 3 2023 Season 2 campaign. Hello everyone, and welcome along and back to RaceSpotTV. My name is Arjuna Kankipati, joined once again in the commentary booth by the one and the only Lorenzo Bonder. Lorenzo, we head to the Hockenheimring, a track that has been ruined in the modern day. However, it does not mean that in these open wheel machines where draft will be so prevalent that we shouldn't be excited for what we're in store for over the course of the next hour.
You've made a great point, Arjuna. It has been ruined. Let's just put this out there to the people. But for F3s, I think this is a perfect track. They do this in the AA Dutch F3s. It's always a great race, 16 corners. Very fast flowing track, especially when you go into the Spitzkette, which is basically the hairpin, where all hell breaks loose and then you handle yourself into the Hockenheim Arena. But all these cars basically going side by side. You can go basically side by side for a full lap, and it's always exciting.
Here's a look at the schedule. Of course, still a long way to go. Up next, a brand new track, and so the drivers, I'm sure, looking forward to a trip over to Spain. We then head over to France, England, Hungary, back over to the UK, back over to Italy, Japan, and then over to Norway. It's a smorgasbord of international travel for these drivers in the Formula 3 series. How did they line up in the championship? Well, how they finished after race number 1. It is as simple as that. Let's not forget, 10 rounds, 1 drop score. Early in the season, you don't want to be relying on that Carter Hutchinson taking a brilliant victory over Ozzy Milwain and Julio Palacio, the front 3 back over at Mosport just 1 week ago. Team Championship, maybe that's where you can grab a little bit more of your trends. It is Atomic Red Panda that lead by just 2 points over the Evolve Sim Sports team that you know is always going to be in contention. Atomic Racing had speed last time out, but we'll want to make sure they keep track of those in front and make sure the margin does not get too big. Cars are already underway with qualifying. Before we turn our attention to them, we thank those that make our coverage tonight possible, starting with Advanced Sim Racing. Owned and operated by passionate sim racers, Advanced Sim Racing designs and builds the sturdiest and most durable aluminium profile racing simulation cockpits available in the market today. All PRL members also get a 5% discount on ASR products using the Precision 5 coupon code. Racebox offers mid and high-end button boxes for sim racing enthusiasts, from the casual gamer up to the most meticulous sim racing driver. Competitively priced and carefully handcrafted, our button boxes are an enjoyable addition to any sim racing setup. Visit raceboxsimracing.com and get a 5% discount using the Precision 5 coupon code. Butt Kicker products add incredible immersion and realism to every game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. Mechasim Hardware is a small company from the Czech Republic, and their goal is to produce high-quality sim racing hardware. If you are looking for high-end pedal sets, handbrakes, or sequential shifters, visit Mechasim Hardware's eShop right now to get you up to speed. Miradness is a performance lifestyle brand motivated by motorsports and founded by professional race car driver Daniel Morad. For more information, visit miradness.com. And Ninja Trader. Better futures start now. Trade the world's future markets with Ninja Trader. Visit ninjatrader.com to access unlimited free trade simulation. Open qualifying at the Hockenheimring. Well, what does that mean, Lorenzo? It means inevitably draft shenanigans as drivers try and fare themselves out as best as possible. Currently sitting on top, though, and by quite a margin, 2/10 or so, Julio Palacio, after the podium a week ago, sits at the top of the qualifying standings.
And trying to get into the top podium spot, like you said last time, getting that podium after kind of like, we could say, a Russian roulette-esque race. So we had at a Mosport, but Obviously, you said it, basically draft the car from another individual. Try to carry yourself as we're going to open up the lap here. It's going to be a really fast one. You can talk us through it, I think.
Helps if I unmute myself. Let's run through turn 1 with Brenner Del Mar. Not using all of the runoff, but I think just trying to be a little bit safe. It's all about this corner though, onto the brakes in towards turn number 2, trying to make sure that you get the tightest apex possible to really sweep to the left-hand side on exit, trying not to tighten the run out of turn 4. Now sweeping what is technically called turn number 5 at the Parabolica. I would question if this was really a corner, but nevertheless, the one coming up next is the one that will scare most of the drivers. The hairpin at 6, on the brakes, after 100 meters, down through the gears into first. Del Mar doing a good job to the apex and hit the throttle in the number 54 machine. Not too worried about wheel spin. Does seem to be still maybe trying to heat up the tires as he sweeps his way through turn 7 flat out and into the braking zone, into the Mercedes-Benz arena. Just before about 80 meters, these drivers worked out into second gear. Del Mar sweeps his way through turn 10, a little bit tentative initially, and then hitting the rev limiter. That's not going to be good for him as Cody grabs. And now Max Shabley jump in front of the 54 machine. The entry to Mobile 1 is so committed as you dive your way into this arena. Sachs curve cambered in. Drivers try and really carry as much speed as possible through there. Dart your way through the traffic. And Del Mar backs out of what would have been a run through turns 15 and 16. He'll set himself up to go once again, but with less than 6 minutes to go, time is starting to wind down in qualifying.
Yeah, it gets a little bit into that pressure situation of really getting a good lap, as we saw Shabley going to P2, Graham's going to P3. We're about to see Jake Potts wrap up his lap. Is it going to be an improvement? Doesn't look like it. Doesn't look like it's going to be a big one.
It's going to be third, so decent enough in the 41 machine. It's less than a tenth that splits the top two, and then there's actually two drivers with identical times in qualifying. That's Eric Dubé and Raymond Doe. It says plus 0.395. That goes all the way down to 4 decimal digits internally in iRacing. They're identical on that mark as well. There's Julio Palacio, though, working his way back out onto track to set up what will be for his final couple of runs in qualifying. At 1.2 tenths clear at the front, now has a little bit of a smaller margin in the Speedworks esports racing team machine.
Yeah, and just back to what I was saying about we were saying about the draft. You basically can draft the entirety of the track, right? I think there's a part that maybe the Mobile 1 cutter, which kind of makes the car wash out into the entry of the corner, because there's like 1 or 2 lines you can carry over following someone. Basically, all the rest you can be behind someone and maybe save not just going to be a tenth or two, but maybe even up to a half a second, depending on how the build-up of the car has been done on the previous laps. But as we go into crunch time, I would say starting right now is where things are going to get critical, and we might see Palacios actually open up his fast lap right now.
I think Jake Potts has just come down into pit lane, so that's going to be him momentarily pulled off of the track as Palacio sets himself up to go once again. Runs himself nice and tidily through the final corner. And now into turn 1. 194 will juke to the right and fly his way over the curve. That's a little bit more commitment. And just watching on through the first couple of corners. Tidy on the braking zone. Fortunately, not too much traffic initially. Do you have any drafts? That's the question. Don't think you'll get the benefit of that. Does not always mean, though, that you can't be quick in qualifying. It seems to be a misconception that some people have, Lorenzo.
Yeah, which is funny to think about. One of the other things we are also seeing is, I think, drivers not being overly aggressive into that curb into the outside of turn number 1, right? Because we've seen not just in F3s, as we're going to see other drivers like Byron Daly in 6th place as he wrapped up his lap. I think that was a massive improvement for Byron from what it looked. Is not taking too much of that curb, because that curb not only gives you an off track if you go too much, and there's kind of the threshold is a little bit tricky. Not only that, it can easily bottom out the car, and one of the things you really don't want is bottoming out the car. I think we can ask Valtteri Bottas how does that feel. No
improvement there for Daly. Was a 100th off of his previous best. And Lorenzo, don't forget these are Formula 3 machines. There is no traction control. Eric Dubé up into 6th spot as Palacio back through the final couple of corners. 7:44, 31.744. His previous best time. Now, no improvement as he comes to the line. He'll get 2 more attempts potentially if he really wants to wind himself up. Max Shabley looking decent as he gets into the middle sectors. Alexander Rivera has just punched in a 31.921. The top 5, less than 2/10 separates them.
Yeah, which is really close. We also saw in the background someone kind of ended up their qualifying run kind of like abruptly, I would say so, as we're seeing Shabley going to the Mobil 1 Kara and setting up himself into the, I would say maybe the mid portion of the 3rd sector, and see how fat is going to be, because right now only 90 hundredths of a second separate him to Palacio at the current moment.
Is it going to be an improvement in the atomic racing machine? Tidily through the final corner, not bouncing too much over the final curb, but it's going to be a 32. No improvement for him. Cody Grams comes into pit lane. That's going to be his qualifying in the books. Next up across the line, Drew DeWeese in the number 23 machine. He's not going to find any improvement of his own, but less than 60 seconds to go. Some of these drivers will get the chance to finish this lap. There are some other drivers that will time it up to finish up their lap and then get 1 more. Whereas the likes of Palacio coming back around to the line to wrap himself up for another flyer. Haven't seen too many improvements, maybe weather playing its part. Palacio finds 0.2 of a second to reassert a 3/10 buffer at the front of the field.
And basically asserting dominance. I don't know if Shabley is going to have time, maybe time he has in the bag, but it's going to be by marginal seconds, but he needs to get that perfect lap. And one of the hardest things for you to nail is getting out of sector number 1 and do that perfect set of sector 2 and 3, because it is highly, I would say, the most technical portion of the track. Where you have the most turns. There you go. I jinxed someone, but don't blame me. There's no commentator's curse.
He just rode over the curb a little too much. Didn't seem to invalidate the lap. The question will be, did that cost him a bit of time? Realistically, he's not just looking forward, but looking behind to see if the likes of maybe Rivera can find even more of an improvement. Shabley, though, sees the checkered flag. And look at that consistency. 0.03 off of the pace. I think Rivera still will get the chance to go again. But Brenner Del Mar going to be one of the next cars to come across the line, as behind you see the 87 of Dubé diving towards the pit lane to practice an entry. Del Mar finds no improvement. Still wait to see then if anyone else can find any more speed.
As we're seeing Cordy Pracker just wrap up his lap, is looking towards his camera. Is it going to be a massive improvement? 0.2 of a second up. And that is going to bump him into next to the top 20 here, Arjuna, which is going to be really good. But nevertheless, I think those who are contending for the lead here, or top 3 positions whenever we start this race, are pretty much done and dusted.
Yeah, it's only Brad Miller left now running to take a finish lap time, and the all-white Delara F3 machine. 32.452. His previous best, he punches in a 32.314. That's good enough to jump him up to 15th spot. So that's qualifying done and dusted. And now, of course, with this open qualifying session, I think we'll get a few moments before we finish things up. In fact, wait, there's still one more car to come across the line. But I think with Jake Vasconcelos wibbling and wobbling back and forth, that lap time was definitely not an improvement. So still 30-odd seconds to go. Palacio 0.3 clear at the front. Lorenzo, the problem is at a track like this, you can be 0.3 clear in qualifying, but the draft is the great equalizer.
As the great equalizer, but also one of the things we saw throughout history is that turn number 1 makes or breaks the races of an individual. We can ask, like Mike Schumacher back in 2000 when his race ended in the first corner, just taking it too much. So going side by side is a risk, but once you pass that, the danger starts into the hairpin, and then just carry yourself into the first few laps. If you survive maybe lap 1 or 2 or 3, I think you're fine.
It's all about survival of the fittest, I would guess, though. We're ready to get underway, though, for round 2 of the Precision Racing League Formula 3 Series. Round 1 at the Hockenheimring was bonkers in its own way. This is going to be its own kettle of madness. Here's how they'll line up with Helio Palacio taking us to the green at the very pointy end of the field. Max Shabley will be alongside on the front row of the standing start, with Jake Potts and Alexander Rivera lining up on row number 2. It's Cody Grams and Brenner Del Mar completing the front 3 rows, with Eric Dubé and James Mollaire in 7th and 8th positions. Byron Daly and Justin Negrete complete your top 10. It's Stephen Ritters and Raymond Doe 11th and 12th, with Jake Vasconcelos and Ozzy Milwain 13th and 14th, with the Evolve Sim Sports 114 having some work to do to work on forward. Miller, Dowden, O'Quinn, Ziti through row 9, with Thurman and Sard through the top 20. Indica Scarlett and Corey Precker 21st and 22nd, with 23rd seeing Takeshi Kita lining up alongside Kevin McPherson. We've got 37 cars to roll our way through. Larkamp, Hill, Hartley, Alexander, Carter, Harris. That's your top 30. And then, of course, Medina, Deweese, Ray, Cochran, Jones, Moran. He's got plenty of work to do. And then James O'Brien. Not sure if that was an intentional not setting a qualifying time, but once again, he will do it from the very back. There's a look at the field as we just wait now for Cody Grams and a handful of others to take their way over to the starting grid to get ourselves launched into a full European swing. We won't head back over to American soil for the rest of the campaign. We'll work our way through Europe, travel over to Japan, I think, as well at one point, and it's going to be a lot of fun to see what the drivers have in store for us. But now it's going to be full attention to the lights, getting ready to go for round number 2 here at the Hockenheimring. It's a fast right-hander that single files itself out. Who's going to be the bravest of them all? Good start from Palacio that leads them into turn 1. Shabley falls in momentarily, but he's got to worry about now Jake Potts, who's got a good launch as well. There's plenty of chaos and carnage. Negrete, Dowden, I think Kita mixed up in that one. It continues as well.
Yikes.
Still piling on into that one. Palacio, though, will wind out of turn number 4 and lead them on the charge to the hairpin.
Ooh, that was a little bit of, we're going to look at the replay what happened between Negrete, I think, somebody else going to turn number 1, then all the chaos didn't shoot at the back. Nothing they could do as we see up to 3 wide going into the hairpin.
It's Shabley that fires it up the inside, but Palacio tries to fight back around the long way. Grams and Potts duke it out for second, but it is going to be Shabley that leads in towards the Mercedes-Benz Arena section. Can already see a bit of separation starting to filter its way on through. Surprisingly, the hairpin was not the scene of all the drama. Maybe not unsurprisingly, it was turn number 1. Grams now in front of Rivera, who with the 575 working his way up 2 positions so far. The 41 of Potts is going to try and squeeze on through on Rivera as well. Nothing doing, though, as we head to Sachs Curve.
I think Potts not having the best start of the race so far over here, but still within that top 5. Just got to follow the drivers a little bit, and now I think we're going to wait maybe until lap 3 of this race to go on, and then whenever the rubber builds up, maybe we start to see more moves going down the hairpin or even turn number 1, depending on the circumstances. But also we have to be mindful about who's going to fuel save this race. Who's going to maybe try to go for an overcut because we still have the pit stops to worry about.
Shabley leads at the end of lap number 1 by half a second from Palacio, Grams, Rivera and Potts. That's the rest of your top 5. Ozzy Milwain had a rocket of a start in the Evolve SimSport machine, was able to work his way through some of the drama and find his way up into the top 10 spots. Miller and Doe will work their way on through, as that's a bit of damaged bodywork that somehow scampers its way on through. Eric Dubé, I think, had a very slow run out of turn 3 and 4, and he gets absolutely mugged by Vasconcelos as there's a pile-up at the hairpin. I think Shabley's gone around. Grams now leads.
Wow, and for what it looks like, also Palacio fell down. I'm looking, I think Positive manages somehow to keep it in there. Shabley just has some issues. Duke falling back quite considerably as he's probably off of this race. And the 2 first laps, they're delivering some drama like we kind of predicted as we look at the replay what happened to Negrete.
Yeah, let's see if we can figure out what happens here. So in front of Michael Dowden, there's actually a self-spinner. Not sure if that was Justin Negret, but it's all a little bit clumsy, if we can be totally honest, and it resulted in, I think, 4 or 5 cars having to take a mandatory trip back down to pit lane. Then let's see what happens to poor Andrew Moran. This is after the fact, and I think already missing a rear wing, spins his car around, and I do not blame him for that one. What happens into the hairpin, though? It's Cody Grams punches in the fastest lap, leading back here at the Hockenheimring in live pictures. Into the hairpin is well, Palacio comes a little bit out of nowhere.
Yeah, maybe he kind of like just overshot his braking zone, or just overcommitted into the brake.
Yep, completely missed the braking zone, I think.
Yeah. Luckily, they managed to avoid, even though going 3 wide, to avoid a car in the middle of the hairpin.
See if we can pick up what happened to Raymond Doe then, as I think things have started to settle on down. This is working out of the hair. Oh, he's already lost his rear wing and the Ninja Trader sponsored machine. Yeah, that's a hard old lick into the wall.
Yeah, basically taking the Andrew Moran approach, but being less successful at it. As we see more issues, yeah.
I think it was Kevin McPherson parked on the apex, and Neil Alexander, I think, has gone the worst of that one. This is crazy again.
Yeah, we're seeing shades of Mosport, and not in a good way.
No, unfortunately not. We started with 36. I think we're left with 25 left in our quote-unquote leading contending pack. Which does go a long way back, but we'll try and figure out what happened there at the hairpin. A bit of an unfortunate situation. It seemed as though the cars tripping over one another. And here we go. There's a couple of cars having some technical issues. That definitely probably doesn't help anything out here, as there's a car that appears that was spun around. I think that's basically the best way to describe that.
Yeah, I just saw someone maybe kind of like lurking into the bottom part of the frame, but that kind of like broke himself, locked the brakes, spun himself in, kind of brought himself to a domino effect, and thus causing Neil Alexander to spin itself and then get into contact right after.
So it's Rivera that's chasing down your race leader, Cody Grams. Palacio and Chablis still are running, but down now in 8th and 9th positions. Have a little bit of work to do to close their way back on up to these drivers. You did mention that there may be the potential that if you're further back in these queues, you could think about doing some fuel saving, because we are expecting, given the length of these races, we'll have...
I said it.
Sorry?
I did say it.
Yes, no, so I was saying, it's one of the things that we'll have to consider.
Oh yeah, true. That is true.
So on board with Miller into this very slippery final sector is poor Sebastian Vettel, and a handful of others have found out over the years.
Yeah, most notably Nico Hülkenberg.
Now you got to say it properly though. Hülkenberg. Hülkenberg. For those that have seen the, yeah.
That series, right?
Yes.
Yeah, fair point.
It's
just
you know the series that I'm talking about that I can't remember off the top of my head right now.
Yeah, that one that called is that one from a certain company called Netflix?
I think so, maybe.
That is called maybe Drive, and maybe you gotta drive to survive.
Ah, yes. Yeah. Okay, well, what's this Oh, that's a bit clumsy again.
Yeah.
Oh, my
Yikes.
days. So McPherson, Ray, and Carter getting mixed up there. It has not been an easy race at the Hockenheimring. It is a big field of 36 Formula 3 cars. I think that's something else that I would point out. Definitely bigger than most real-world fields that we see in this car.
Yeah, I think... Actually, this is funny. I was looking into the F3. I know we have, of course, F1 weekend in Melbourne. But I was surprised that the F3 field, the Formula 3, is actually nearly up to 30 cars. So it's right on par in terms of quantity, which is kind of surprising to think about the cost these cars bring, and of course the natural evolution now that the F3 cars have taken up to the fact that now they have DRS and the Halo as well. These ones are basically pre-Halo. I think we're the last model pre-Halo.
They were. Still a decent car to wheel itself around, as And now Gavin Ray having a bit more issues. That's coming on to, that's surely a broken rear suspension. To be slip and sliding that much around, involved in some of the contact. Maybe there was a bit more contact that led to that one. But Cody Graham's maybe trying to break away at the front, and you'll see now 1 second clear. He's got that number 3 of Gavin Ray trying to get back up to speed now in between him and Rivera. Margin actually grew slightly as they get onto the anchors into the hairpin.
I think it is the different braking zones that you have around the hairpin. It's kind of like you have to commit and you have to take a certain line into the hairpin and avoid the 1X, because if you go into the far outside portion of the hairpin, which some people do, we saw that you saw this most specifically at the Porsche Sport Super Cup, that they do take a lot of that tarmac on the outside and they take an off track into it. So you can get that not just on turn number 1, but if you ride way too much, you can easily get off tracks here on this track, which is insane to think about.
Yeah, you do have to be a little bit more careful than I think some may realize in terms of managing off tracks, especially at a location like this. Most sport has its own natural selection when it comes to the off tracks. If you crash, everyone knows that you, or if you push wide, you crash, and so everyone knows that you did something wrong. It's a lot simpler.
Yeah, this is what I like to say. It's a grassroots track, not the Tilke drums like we're seeing over here, because Tilke kind of destroyed this track.
Let's talk about the history of this fantastic facility. Originally called Driekerskuurs, I hopefully did not butcher that too much, which translates to the triangle course. Built back in 1932. Plans were actually approved on Christmas Day back in 1931. What a great day that would have been. And the first layout was 12 kilometers long, and yes, was a bit of a triangle. They shortened it down 6 years later from 12 kilometers to a measly 7.5 kilometers. Track got renamed and then renamed subsequently after World War II when damage was repaired to the Hockenheimring. Over the years, eventually, this is the location and layout rather that we've kind of landed on. You've got the tribute over to Jim Clark on one side of the facility that marks where the old track used to blast on off to. This is high speed, Lorenzo. The old configuration, even back in the late 80s, was even higher speed.
Yeah, I think the average speeds that you would get is next to... Oh, we have more issues around the track. Which one is it?
I think that was Evan Jones, so it's a lapped car. It's the 24. It's going to try and get back out onto track. But yeah, a handful more drivers are indeed having issues, because James O'Brien has had a spill as well. Yeah,
which is the treacherous nature of the track whenever you go into the second and third segment, which is kind of upset easily as we have more issues. The number 33 of James O'Brien just
that was
getting
Kevin
hammered.
McPherson for, I think, the 3rd time today, getting involved in an incident.
Yeah, you're definitely going to someone's blacklist after this.
Yes. Oh, that, though, is that curb ending up on the blacklist for the number 24 of Evan Jones.
Yep, most definitely. But just coming back really quickly to the history of the track, of course, for me as a Brazilian, it is a special track because I know Rubens Barrichello first ever win was actually in Hockenheim. Like I said before, Michael Schumacher retired early on lap number 1, and we had, I think, one of the craziest races in F1 history. I think only 2007 Montreal might have been more crazier than this. But aside that, the car's, I think, average speed was nearly about 190 miles per hour, which was insane. It's insane to think about 80 like the 80 decade cars doing 190 average on a track like this.
Yep, absolutely. Graham's not able to break away. Rivera, in fact, dropping daily slightly as Malaire really hustling in his quest to try and close up to the podium spots. Pit stop window likely to open in about 10 or 15 minutes time, but not really expecting too many drivers to peel on down. There are some small pockets where you could find yourself clear of some traffic, but that's not a guarantee. It's definitely not something that you want to be relying on. Ozzy Milwain, what a fantastic drive it's been from him after qualifying outside of the top 10, down in 14th position. Finds himself in the top 5 in the wonderfully liveried Evolsim Sport car.
Yeah, and getting precious points that, just taking a quick look, I think, if I remember, Carter is not even racing this race, so that might be his week where he's going to get his drop points. So Ozzy is most definitely going to be propelling himself into top, it's going to stay in the top 3, but maybe propelling himself into the into contention of the lead of the championship, as we see Saad and Hill fighting it out on the timing tower, basically, Arjuna. And the only problem is Palacio's not far behind, so any mistake for that 114 will be lethal on the points if we're considering early on in the season how close it is.
Vasconcelos pulls out of the way in his number 10 machine. It's been a very difficult ride for him so far. He's in 24th position, and that comes after he qualified up in 13th spot. 1.5 the margin at the line this time by. Cody Graham's doing a great job to stretch his advantage at the front, as Blake Ziti does a great job, unfortunately, of finding his way out of the wall in the Williams Esports liveried car. Or Williams F1 liveried car, I guess.
Yeah, and from what it looks like, the front left of his wing, it doesn't look like it is very healthy, as we see battles between the number 9 of Moller and Daly going side by side.
So Moller momentarily gets in front, but fight back from Daly on the run down in towards the hairpin and has the lead, but not the inside line. That's where Moller jinks his way on through. Now Rivera, I think, got tagged as a result of that. Major drama through the hairpin. Alexander Rivera, through no fault of his own, is going to plunge down the timing. James Moller's desperation sees him climb to second.
Ooh. And I'll be very honest. When I looked them side by side, going to the braking zone, I was fearing for Rivera right there for a little bit, and unfortunately, the worst happened. And just Moller has nothing to do with that. Just gonna say merci beaucoup, and it's basically gonna launch himself off and conquer P2 at the time being.
Ozzy Milwain had to take avoiding action as well, but he gets on through, just right on board. I mean, it's a day late and $1 short, and with no chance of realistically making that one. I mean, that's about as slam dunk a penalty as you'd like.
Yep.
Pretty ridiculous, sorry.
Yeah. You're basically, I'm seconding that.
Well, Cody Grahams now leads by 4 seconds, so he's in a pretty good spot. I'm surprised that Moller doesn't have more damage, all things considered, but Ozzy Milwain now sits in a podium spot. Double-digit positions gained.
I think he's going to be happy with the fact that he's now sitting into the top 3 with the survival race. And Rivera is somehow within the top 10, believe it or not.
True.
Even though he's going to lose a position.
I was going to say, the question is, how damaged is his machine, and is he kind of just limping it around until he can bring it down to the pit lane? In front of him, it's going to be Brett Thurman that sends the send into the hairpin. Cutback attempted by Brad Miller in that number 15, but the bright white machine not going to be able to get his way back alongside, although he half thinks about it up and towards the Mercedes-Benz arena. So Milwain's fought his way forward, and now maybe, I wonder, thinks about the fuel mileage once again. Pit entry here is not necessarily that difficult. Pit exit here also not necessarily that difficult, Lorenzo. The difficult thing will be firing yourself back out straight into action and into a fight potentially into turn number 2.
Ooh, nice save from Milwain, as we were talking about. But yeah, it's basically how you. I think for me is how fast and effective you are into the entry. Exit not so much, because it's basically right hand side, and you're into basically the straight that leads turn number 1 to turn number 2. But of course, there can be a lot of commitment going from the entry point of the pit stop, and can kind of cut maybe, apologies, up to, I would say, 3/4 of a second, depending how aggressive you take that, and you avoid the penalty of getting something like that, as Chablis is going to get overtaken by Palacio. So the the hunter for the points begging lead in the championship, getting one more spot and soon knocking the door of Milwaukee. I don't know, maybe.
Palacio will be happy to work his way on forward as now Rivera's plunge down through the field continues. Clearly a bit of a stricken car that he's trying to nurse into a pit stop cycle. See if he can still grab a top 20 by the time we finish the race here. Oh, he's missing the side pod on the right-hand side, isn't he?
Yeah, he's missing from the contact.
Oh, wow.
He had with,
and so he did a 1:37.3 last time by, so that's what, 4 or 5 seconds off the pace. He's gonna. I'm surprised he hasn't been forced to bring that car down pit road.
Believe it or not, that is not actually a mandatory repair.
That seems unsafe. I'm just saying.
No, I agree 100%. Oddly enough, body damage, if it is like, unless it is front wing, I think front wing you kind of have to repair because it is mandatory, and back wing, which is mandatory, you need it. Side pod is optional.
Gotcha. Well, Stefan Larkamp straight on through. It'll be Michael O'Quinn that tries to follow, and in fact, immediately into turn number 2, able to slide his way past a driver formerly in contention for a potential race victory. Frustrating at times. 25 minutes to go in this one. Cody Graham's clear at the very tippy top of the field as Byron Daly and Stephen Ritters trip over one another, albeit slightly. Daly back up now into the 5th position. Ritters might try and get this one back.
Yeah, which is one of those things that you never know about this track. You know, it always invites you to do a more aggressive overtake, but for this one, Daly just manages to get into a safer position, break away a little bit, and if he doesn't make any mistakes, I think the gap is going to basically extend to, I would say, maybe 4 to 5 tenths of a second.
Don't forget that traffic is likely going to play its part through the course of this one, given how many incidents that we had. 36 took the green. Already we've had, what's that, 9 or so retirements? If I'm counting this all correct. 10 retirements, in fact, excuse me. So attrition rate's not bad. Corey Precker is out there in 29th position, 6 laps down, just hoping and praying that maybe there's a little bit more drama here.
Yeah, if we get more drama, maybe it's going to be towards the final 15 to 10 minutes of this race, wherever everyone decided to do their pit stops, and I think things are going to get more scrappy moving forward. If you're managing to stay within the draft, of course, like we said before, into most sport, the draft has kind of like taken into a shift into iRacing. Of course, these cars generate a lot of draft, so you can pretty much ride it without too much of a problem, but you don't get like those 1.5 second gaps, and you can close down more effectively like you used to back in the day. Now it is more of a maybe 1 second, 0.8 of a second, something like it, where you have to develop the car.
Alexander Rivera slips back now to 16th spot as Oliver Hartley jumps in front of him. And the bleeding is going to continue because he continues to be doing 37s comparing to 32s at the very tippy top of the field. Fastest car on track last time by, though, was actually Byron Daly with a 32.604. So clearly still with plenty of speed on his side. As that's Jake Potts, who's had a bit of a weird one. Coming through maybe that same curb that we saw earlier, catching out one of our other drivers, and he's going to be straight down onto pit lane.
Which might not be the worst choice here overall. Just going to the pit stop. Let's look at the replay. Yeah, just catching. It's weird. For me, it's weird looking at that angle, Arjuna, because you'd think that the car it's settled on the ground. It's not going to bottom out. You transitionally shift from bank curve, reaccelerating, and boom, into the grass.
This is an open setup series, if I remember, so it could be that maybe has the car running a little bit low, because that's, of course, where you get the maximum performance in a straight line, but not the first time we've seen it, and I would be willing to wager, likely not the last, even if that is maybe not here tonight. 22 minutes left on the clock, and so I do think we are into a point where you can come down to pit lane and fill up your fuel and get to the end, of course, but the question will be, how many want to risk filtering back out into traffic. Been pretty focused on the battle up front, and that's mainly because it's all very much stretched out behind as a result of all of the drama that we have kind of seen. Behind Byron Daly, it is starting to stack up once again. You got Ritters, you got Palacio, you got Chablis as part of the crew as well.
Somehow, some way surviving all the issues necessary is probably going to see Chablis from what it looks like coming into the pit lane here, Arjuna. So can we officially say that pit parties have now become a real thing?
I think we'll see a handful down this time by Brad Miller, Brett Thurman. They're also following Chablis' lead as he finds his way to the very front of the pit road, because of course the box is dictated by qualifying position. Where's the 14 going to cycle out? Cars from behind, that's Oliver Hartley, but crucially for Chablis, he's got a good 4 seconds in front of him that he can now charge through and hopefully make the undercut work as Palacio gets up in front of Ritters into the hairpin.
I'm wondering how committed was Palacio going into the corner right here, as from what it looks like, Ritters trying to find that position to go back and claw up that spot again, or I would say just play it smart, just go into the pit lane and maybe jump up the position into the pit lane.
Yeah, I feel like the better call would be, like you say, to try and do that, but you likely are going to want to try and do that only if you come in on a slightly different lap to what maybe the rest of your competitors are going to do. Will anyone come in this time by in this leading contingent? Cody Grams comes on in. Moller will stay on out, but I think Milwain dived to pit road along with potentially a couple of others, but Daly, Palacio, and I think that's Ritters as well, will stay out for an additional lap.
Really looking forward whenever everybody cycles from the pit lane, because from what I looked initially, I think maybe Bart Palacios and I was going to say maybe Chablis that stayed within the top 10. Not even Chablis. Chablis had, I remember, he had an issue in the race. But I think Bart Milwain and Palacio, everybody else is kind of like a first-timer. Of course, in the season, we are just 2 races into the top 10. But, of course, still up to confirm after everybody has cycled down.
So coming out of pit lane, Cody Grams found some clean air. He's in front of Sully Saad. Ozzy Milwain came out behind Michael O'Quinn. But in terms of lap time, maybe not the worst thing in the world if he's able to take advantage of this tow that is now being presented to him. Daly is 4 seconds back of Moller in the leading number 9 Dallara Formula 3 machine into Sachs for the potentially final time before a pit stop. Surely with time ticking away and a pretty generous amount of time at full throttle in these cars. Indeed, Moller off to stage right. Daly's going to sweep his way on in as well, really trying to maximize the entry, although maybe not as much as Steven Ritters did. They find their way onto the box for the one and only time.
And good enough that nobody decided to take the Lewis Hamilton different lines, as cars decided to be very jumpy into the pit lane.
So not really worried about Cody Grams. He's, of course, going to cycle his way back to the lead. But for Moller, where does he cycle relative to Ozzy Milwain? It is going to be a pretty decent jump, all things considered. But still, Moller and Milwain find themselves in podium contention. And then Byron Daly, Max Chablis, and Steven Ritters have now a 3-car contingent that will fight for 4th, 5th, and 6th.
And just I was taking a quick look over here on the pit time. And remember what I said about being effective to the entry, Arjuna? Moller's time to the pit lane, 20.4 seconds, where Grams was 1.2 seconds slower. That's considerate. Imagine if that was closer without all the issues we had early on in the race. So we could even argue that Moller could be up in the lead of this race if everybody was actually close to one together. But nice job from the number 9 into the pit lane to actually cut down the deficit that much.
So it is going to be 3.8 seconds at the front of the field between Grams, Miller, and Milwain as we track this fight for second with what I think is actually going to be... Oh, as Aussie Milwain, all the hard work comes unstuck. Another one to ground himself on the curb. He's got to watch the rejoin here because I tell you what, that could have been a whole lot worse for the likes of Steven Ritters.
Yeah, just that could have been very dangerous. I don't know if that was, I was going to say deliberate coming back to the track like that. Of course, you got the grass. It's very hard for you to stop on the grass. As we're going to look on the replay, I think that was a case of
entry
catching
curve.
Too much curb. Yeah, you ride too much on the entry and you completely lose traction. Just kind of like not surprised at all.
Doesn't look as bad maybe from the onboard perspective that we had there with Steven Ritters, but now what was a fight for fourth becomes a fight for third, and Daly sits in the third and final podium position with Chablis and Ritters eager to take it away from him.
Yeah, which makes it's insane to think about it. And if I remember, both the 14 and 27 are teammates, so who does get the benefit of the doubt over here as both Chablis and now a little bit scrappy on the outside. Might lose a little bit of ground to Ritters going to the second sector, but so far keeping that fourth spot. And if I'm them, do your best to try to get to Daly, and because you don't have a lot of laps left.
Yeah, time is ticking away as these laps also fly on by. Chablis pushes his way well and truly off the track, and Daly opens up the buffer to 1.5 seconds. Well, they're doing a decent job to actually close potentially on Cody Grams. He's going to come up on what I think is going to be 10 laps to go this time by. Or excuse me, 9 laps to go this time by. Like we say, never trust a commentator's math.
Yeah. It's like one of the things we can universally agree on, right, Arjuna? Never trust the commentator's math, but the commentator's curse doesn't exist.
Yes, I'm actually talking with Lewis McLeod right now, so it's interesting that we're talking about commentators' curses.
Oh, really? I know it's 3:15 in the morning. Is he still up?
Apparently.
Wow.
To be fair, I think he was just trying to show off his golf swing, which is looking fantastic right now.
Oh, yeah. He said he was actually going to be. Imagine Lewis in the PGA Tour.
Oh, I would love
Ryder
to see
Cup
that.
Winner.
But then I've got to commentate on that. Steven Ritters and Max Chablis. Don't think we'll see a squabble between the two of them, especially knowing that I think Chablis likely to see some sort of penalty for some of the stuff that we saw at the hairpin earlier. Don't think Ritters has that same cloud over his head. And so 2 seconds now, the buffer up to Daly, has Ritters already lost track of that opportunity. Into the hairpin, it's Brad Miller, Sully Saad, both in white machines. One has a bit of red detailing, but that's Sully Saad that loses out in the quest to try and hold on to 11th position. Larkamp behind, lurking in the Alcantech NHR Esports car. But it's going to be Sully Saad that jinks back to the inside, albeit momentarily. Or trying to shape up, I think, to avoid leaving a gap for Larkamp to squeeze on through, because he's equally concerned about Michael O'Quinn behind.
And is getting too scrappy for my own liking, as they all basically go themselves into the arena. And Larkamp just looking for his back-to-back top 10 here in the season, which is, like I said before, a really good morale for the boost morale for the Lionheart IndyCar Series driver. So let's see how it's going to be for Larkamp as he moves forward into the next few laps, being the hunter and the hunted at the same time.
Battle for the lead. Gap comes down to 3 seconds. Is there still going to be an opportunity for Cody Grams to work his way on forward? We'll have to wait and see. Steven Ritters, I think, must have made a mistake, because he's now found himself more looking at a bigger gap to Byron Daly. I'm not
4 seconds.
Yeah, I'm not sure if maybe we can pick up what happened here. It's into the slippery final sector, and he gets a big old tank slapper. And I'm going to be interested to watch this one from his teammates' perspective behind.
Yeah, same. This is something I was kind of noticing. I don't know if maybe it's because they went so much already, 24 laps, and just to try to kind of kills momentum.
I did wonder why Max Shabley wasn't past Stephen Ritters, it's because they both almost had sympathy synchronized spins.
But think of it this way, team synergy is at an all-time high.
That is true. They are very much on the same wavelength as one another. We'll come to the end of yet another lap. This time, Muller unable to make an impression on the gap for the race lead. Fight for fourth. Now a four-car train. Jake Potts, Julio Palacio, they're both involved. Ozzy Milwane's only 2 and a bit odd seconds back as well. If he can be able to claw his way back into this one, is the draft and the hairpin going to set up all sorts of shenanigans with 7 laps to go.
Which is always good for us to see in terms of action here, Arjuna, as this kind of shape up how the top 3 is going to move forward. Now that we cycled up everything, I'm just taking a quick look at the top 10 and kind of comparing to the last race. Hill actually is getting his top 10, first top 10 in the season. He was actually 11th, though, so the first car outside. Other than that, only Palacio, Milwane, and I don't want to say, these are the only 2 guys who were actually made in top 10 in the last race at Mosport.
That, again, it's been such a crazy round. I mean, if this is how every round is going to go, then boy, are we in for some entertainment. And by that I mean losing our voices. But yeah, we'll wait and see. Muller's gap, by the way, to Graham's back up to 4 seconds, so I wonder if traffic playing a little bit of a part there. But there'll be 6 to go this time by, and Graham's continues to assert his authority on the rest of the field.
Yeah, but I was taking a quick look. Is not a absolute dominance. It's kind of like 3 seconds, but it's being kept on is because Muller is actually pushing really good laps and being faster by marginal tenths of a second as he opens up one more lap. Last lap 32.6 for the 7.575 Muller at 33.2. So this is the first lap where we actually saw a huger gap going in Graham's way in comparison to Muller's.
Again, I think that's potentially traffic related as we continue just to keep our eye on that fight for fourth that I'm sure will settle itself out before we get to the checkered flag inevitably. Plenty of clean air, that's the main thing for your race leader at the very front of the field. Shabley has dropped back slightly from his teammate Stephen Ritters, but fortunately it's Jake Potts that's more looking backwards to Julio Palacio after putting it on pole position. The SRT Esports car down the inside. The 194 back up to 6th.
Oh, no, we thought a fight, though, kind of leaving the gap a little bit for the number 41 of Potts to try to come in and steal the position back as they open up sector number 2 side by side nearly. Larkep, I think, nearly had an issue from what it looks like battling with Saad.
They're still fighting it out, not really much to talk about in terms of changes, though. Still Saad is from Larkamp, who runs himself out rather wide. That will be a 1x incident to be added there.
Yep.
Into the final sector they go as well.
This is the kind of the moment of the race you say off tracks are now a very usable resource for you to use.
Yes, if you have them in reserve, that's the main thing, which plenty of these drivers may not because of how frenetic it has been. That's Larkamp and O'Quinn that now have come to blows, and Larkamp's missing the rear wing, and that's going to be him spinning himself around before eventually finding his way down to pit lane.
What a shame for Larkamp. Really got it for him. Had a really promising race here there, Arjuna, but that's the thing of the softer body now within those F3s and basically near cars we saw coming up on the patch not too long ago. You know, just the most minor of context can basically now damage your diffuser, your rear wing, as Palacio goes for the move now.
Yeah, that's another bit of a send in towards the hairpin, but Shabley leaves him just enough room, and Palacio almost loops it around on power down. There'll be 4 laps left this time across the line, and so Palacio realistically thinks that the highest he's looking at is getting back up into 4th, but all things considered, what a recovery drive that would be, Lorenzo, to back up his podium from 7 days ago.
Yeah, 100%, you know, just good race in the first race here. You start with the pole, of course, you face some issues throughout the race, but still in the track, you're still fine, you still have that pace, you're still retaining that confidence. Of course, gotta avoid the mistakes. I think Ritters, Shabley had an issue.
Yeah, I think
Slow down, maybe?
might have been a slowdown because it didn't look like anything else had happened there. And in fact, with the margin to Palacio continuing to build, sideways there for Ridders off, for Chablis, excuse me, off of the corner exit. I think he'll be hoping that he can settle down and now try and grab the toe of Palacio on the run back up into the hairpin. But Palacio now 2 seconds off of 4th spot. Chablis uber defensive into turn 2. And it ends in tears as now Aussie Bill Wayne in reaction's going to loop it around as well after Potts and Chablis came to blows. More drama here for the Formula 3 series on a Thursday night.
Can I steal your phrase here, Arjuna?
Okay.
When it rains, it pours.
Oh yeah, I do say that a lot, don't I?
Yeah.
It's a lot of things I say a lot. I kind of had no more words to say after this one. I don't really know why Chablis went so defensive, and then he got his braking slightly wrong, lost the rear end, got a tap from Potts from behind, who then lost the rear wing, and poor Aussie Milwayne.
Literally nothing to do, just heading to have the popcorn and caught himself with the cookie jar.
Hitting the rev limiter on the entry, and you just see. Oh, he okay, maybe he lost the rear end a little bit earlier. I don't know. I don't know about that.
No. I can tell you this much. Like that error is because of Potts coming back into the track into his lane. If he had gone into the normal lane that I think Milway wanted to do, the car wouldn't step out of the rear just like that. It's because you're hitting high revs just like that, and the high revs whenever you are into second gear, really want to make the rear of the car feel alive.
So into pit lane now comes Jake Potts. I wonder if that's damage or if that's incident related. Maybe
both.
Yeah, Max Chablis has a black flag, so that much I know is we're going to see him coming down to pit lane for a drive-through penalty. So 36 starters. Well, 19 lead lap runners. It's almost half the field that will be classified off of the lead lap, and we still, I guess, have 2 laps left to play.
Yeah. You basically kind of like nail on the point whenever you said, like, I think 10, 12 laps earlier, those who still have a chance outside of the top 10 might get some really good spots because of the pit strategies. Well, there you have it.
Let's take a look at those positions gained because there's some big movers and there's some big losers. Chablis minus 11, Thurman plus 13, Hill plus 19. I mean, that is remarkable. Even your race leader, Grams, is up 4 positions. Started inside of the top 5, but once he got the lead, has not really looked on back. And if we're expecting the drama to decrease, Lorenzo, let's not forget we go to a track up next that these drivers may never have actually raced on before.
Yeah, literally new track, the Circuito Jerez de la Frontera, which is in Spain, and also famous for its scraps between Villeneuve and Schumacher, which decided in 1997 whenever Villeneuve won, I think, in 1997. So, and it's a track that for F3s kind of follow themselves closely into the first few sectors, but it can get scrappy, especially if you're after the long back straight and you go into the hairpin. Just really quickly, now we have actually 3 cars into the top 10 that have been into the top 10 last season.
James Moller has had a bit of a moment of his own because he's now 7 and he's dropping a lot of time. Is this a slowdown penalty or is this something else befalling James Moller? Seems to be equalizing now, but not all is well, I think, on that car.
Front end looks okay. Maybe fuel? Question mark?
Okay, so this is after the fact of whatever has already happened. Okay, through the final corner. Maybe it was a slowdown at turn number 1. Your leader, Cody Grams, is wrapping around to take what will be the white flag. That doesn't look wrong to me. That's not slowdown worthy. Into turn 2. Is there something here? I'm very confused.
Same.
Well, maybe we'll get a word from James Moller in the post-race chat. But fuel was my first indication. It's equalized, like I said.
Yeah, but you wouldn't be concerned with fuel.
Surely, hopefully. He was only in the box for 4.9 seconds compared to 5.7 for Grams.
But Ritter's was 4.8.
Yeah, no, that's why I didn't really bring it up before. Corey Precker has come back down to pit lane, so I wonder if maybe he miscalculated.
It's F3s. That it would be a thing that doesn't surprise me with that much, given the fact that in official series you don't pit.
Right, yeah, that's a good point. You don't really pit this car traditionally, but we're shaking up for, I think, an intriguing season where 10 rounds, but only one can be used as a drop week. And that cannot be the championship finale at Rudskogen, which we know is going to be bonkers. But in 2 rounds, we've seen plenty of incidents and 2 different winners. Cody Grams will punch his way out to the final corner to win in the Precision Racing League Formula 3 Series here at the Hockenheimring after what was a feisty old battle. James Moller has had an issue through the final corner and will lose out on a podium spot. Byron Daly and Stephen Ritters jump in front of James Moller, and on the final lap sees it all slip away. Here's a look at the replay, Lorenzo. Back end steps around, and into the wall goes the number 9.
Just the lack of the minor lack, lapse of concentration. Just I think overdrove the car too much and just put too much throttle in halfway through and slam into the wall, and that's your podium done and dusted.
Still waiting for the rest of the cars to work their way across the line. Looking forward to talking with our winner and Byron Daly and Stephen Ritters, and maybe even get the chance to chat with James Moller. There's that Jim Clark Memorial that sits outside of Turn 2 where the old layout of the track used to venture off into the forest at high speed. But what an interesting round 2 for the drivers here today. Survivors will be thrilled. Those involved in the chaos, I'm sure, will be waiting to have their word in the post-race chats that I'm sure will ensue. Here's how they finished up, though, at least unofficially. It's the Noxie Motorsport 575 of Cody Grams victorious after working his way through all of the drama. Byron Daly then finishing behind 11 seconds off the leader, with Stephen Ritters grabbing the final step on the podium for Atomic Racing. James Moller was about to make it a 1 and 2 for Noxie Motorsports, but some issues in the final couple of laps. Not really sure what happened there. Julio Palacio put it on pole, had to fight his way back into the top 5, while Lucas Hill take a bow, 20 positions gained after starting down in 26th. Aussie Milwane, well, a couple of issues, back up to 7th after starting in 14th. Brad Miller, Brett Thurman, Sully Saar, that's your rest of the top 10. Jake Bott scored in 11th in front of Max Shabley, both of them needing drive-through penalties after hitting the incident limit. Michael O'Quinn in 13th, with Oliver Hartley and Barry Cochran 14th and 15th. Kevin McPherson and James O'Brien 16th and 17th, with O'Brien another one to gain 20 positions. James Carter, Andrew Moran, and Indica Scarlett through your top 20. Gavin Ray, Drew DeWeese, and then Evan Jones. Those other cars effectively 2 laps down, while Dubé and Larkamp, one got to the finish, one did not. 4 laps separates them from your race leaders effectively, while we then get to the retirees. Corey Precker recovered a 26th, but Neil Alexander 27th for him. Rivera 28th, he'll be frustrated along with the likes of Blake Ziti and Jake Vasconcelos. Austin Harris, Raymond Doe, Takeshi Kita, Michael Dowden, Brennan Del Mar, Justin Negrete, and then Nathan Medina. Those are your 37 contenders that at least attempted to get to the end of this race. Some had more success than the others. Let's head straight down, should we, to the victory lane where Cody Grams is standing by with Lorenzo Bonder.
So, Cody, congratulations on the win. Well, P20, just going to grab over here, just confirm. P23 Motorsport, now into P1. Talk us through this race, man. How confident were you in Hockenheim?
I was not confident at all, to be honest. I did 36 laps of practice trying different setups before this, and I got lucky. That was there was a lot of luck involved for me to get that win.
Oh, like you said, well, it was a scrappy race from a few points, but and then you got the lead at 1 point. But how do you now going to a new track that nobody has ever ran in Jerez? How do you negotiate a track that I was gonna say kind of has similarities to what you guys race at Motorsport and things like you saw at Hockenheim?
Well, next week's track I have not driven at all, so it'll be new to me as well. I got a lot of practice to do. So I guess I'll have to find out for myself how it compares to this track in Motorsport. I was really bummed about last week because Motorsport is one of my best tracks, and I was pretty disappointed the way it ended up.
Oh, most definitely. You're going to get maybe get that as a drop points. But looking forward to what you see, what you do next week, Cody. Congratulations again on the win, and we hope to see you maybe here on the podium next week at Jerez.
Yep. Thanks for the broadcast, and we'll see you next week.
So that is Cody Graham's your race winner. We'll head on over to the third step of the podium where Stephen Ritters is standing by with us. I mean, Stephen, that was a tumultuous and interestingly feisty race. Talk us through it from your perspective.
Yeah, well, I went into the race expecting a little bit of carnage, especially in that long straight and really slow right-hander. So my strategy was just to keep the tires cool, stay out of trouble, and hopefully capitalize on other people's mistakes, and I guess it worked.
Coming up next, it's a track that I think Lorenzo and I have already kind of talked about the fact that many drivers will not have much experience at. We've had 2 crazy races already. How are you going to approach next week's race over at Jerez?
I'll probably just do some practice laps, notice where I'm losing speed, and then take advantage of iRacing's active reset to, focus my attention on specific sections of the course.
I really like that. Talk us through that active reset. That's one of the features that's been introduced recently. How much do you find that it helps you being able to get up to speed?
Oh, it's huge. After you realize where you're slow, comparing your telemetry against other people's telemetry, you kind of focus on a specific location of the track, and you can practice that over and over again until you become consistent and fast. And over the course of a race, a week, you can gain at least half a second just by being consistent.
Well, congratulations on a podium, Stephen, and looking forward to seeing how Active Reset helps you for 7 days from now.
Cheers, thanks.
Stephen Ritters, third on the podium, but we'll make our way up to second, where Byron Daly standing by with Lorenzo Bonder.
So Byron, congratulations on P2. Good debut, I would say, to start off the season, right?
Oh yeah, this is completely unexpected, to be honest with you. Earlier this evening, I was, quite honestly, I was out at dinner with some friends, just hanging out, and I was like, oh, we got a race tonight, I should probably try to make it, and let alone got here qualifying, started, Raymond Day sent me a setup, and it's like, holy crap, we're fast. I think some of the rush showed there, just didn't quite get the job done to kind of keep up with those guys, but got kind of lucky, and yeah, P2, that's really cool.
All right, that's nice to know. And moving forward, how do you keep up to try to get podium spots and really good results to try to, not just in Jerez, but throughout the season to keep very consistent and strong?
Well, honestly, it's going to come down to it. You just got to nail the balance with the setup. Like this setup we had here was really well balanced. I slid it too much, just trying to get used to keeping up with those guys. Too many counter steer moments, and then started having issues with the front axle and the rear axle and locking, and just trying to keep control of it. So I think just doing a little bit more to kind of nail the balance into what I like and what I need, and just getting practice in and trying to, get back in the swing of things. I think, that was really encouraging right there. We'll see what we can do the rest of the season.
Perfect. Well, Byron, congratulations at that P2 spot, and hope to see you maybe here for another interview at the Spanish track in 1 week time.
Thank you.
That's going to be Byron Daly wrapping up our post-race coverage. We've mentioned it a few times today because I think we're really looking forward to seeing how these drivers fare at the Circuit Jerez in 1 week's time, Lorenzo, over on April the 6th. But that's, of course, the continuation of our European swing over to Magny-Cours after that, then popping over to Brands Hatch, back over to Hungary for the Hockenheimring flying back over to the UK for Donington Park. Over to Imola, Motegi, and then Rodskogen to wrap things up.
Yeah, I really like this combination of tracks. They're highly technical and they're not easy. At one single track, you know, there's not a track that you can say I can relax a little bit and be more consistent about it. So you have to be on your toe every single time. It is very fast track, a lot of sweeping bend, especially going through that maybe the first sector and you go and you lead yourself into the back straight. But the final maybe 3-4 corners where they're like right back to back to back to back, they're very hard. Looking forward to see it.
What an interesting start to this campaign it has been. It might be survival of the fittest over the course of 10 championship rounds, 2 races, 2 different winners, and 2 equally tempestuous races. We'll see you next time, though, on a Thursday night as the PRL action continues to roll on. On behalf of the team at RaceSpotTV, for Lorenzo Bonder, alongside myself, Arjuna Kankipati, thank you so much for joining us once again for Precision Racing League Formula 3 action. It's Cody Grams that walks away from the Hockenheimring on top.